But I'll be honest, Drea, I'm a warrior, I'm a fighter, I'm a fixer. I would really struggle with information I can't do anything about. I've gotten active in the things that I care about. When I discovered this abomination of vaccinations, and I've won lawsuits, I've sued the government and won. I have won against the FDA, the NIH, the CDC, Health and Human Services. I have a great nonprofit filled with beautiful people all around the world that are funding me to sue the government to get to the bottom of some of these issues. I'm an active person, but I can't carry a darkness that I can't do anything about. That's just me personally. I know what my limitations are. I want to wake up in the morning and feel good. I want to be able to look at my kids and look them in the eyes and think there's some hope that this world can be a great place for them. I'm concerned for sure. And I'm investigating it all. I'm investigating chemtrails. I've got FOIAs. We are doing legal work and trying to figure out what's in, how's it being distributed, who's paying for it, what's all going on. I need extraordinary evidence. There's something Ryan Cole, who's a great doctor that sort of was made famous through COVID, but he once said to me, and it's something that I really carry on these issues, extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence.
Hello there. Are you exhausted? Have you done too many interviews already today, or were you doing the Highwire?
Look, first of all, you're so much fun to talk to, so I'm not worried.
Wow,
But I am. I'm getting to that point where my wife once had a meeting when she was in music with a guy that set up a 1-minute meeting. And she showed up and he had like all these doors, and everyone was just sitting waiting for their 1-minute meeting. And the guy ended up doing more for her than almost anybody else. He just would say, all right, lay it on me. Who are you? What do you got going on? All right, what do you need? What can I do for you? And then, he made some calls and did some stuff. And I'm like, I always reflect on that. I'm starting to become the 1-minute meeting guy. Like,
I'm going to fucking haunt you for more than 1 minute. I have 9,000 questions in front of me, and you're probably going to want to plead the fifth. Let's go for the one. Let's go for the hard ones. I want your ugliest, hardest questions. Well, I don't even do an intro here, so we'll just go for it.
Okay.
Yes, I do. I have way too many friggin' questions here.
Okay.
You are the new version of a rock star in this day and age. Like, chicks like me normally are like, oh my God, it'd be great to go to see the Stones and, say hi to this person. No, now it is Del motherfucking Bigtree. It's you. It's anybody who's fighting for anything that's meaningful at this point. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't have even ended up in this space had it not been for medical freedom stuff, because I was never politically involved in anything. I always had my speculations about certain things. I never voted.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I found myself in the pandemic and everything changed. So then you, Kennedy, everybody's voices became the only voices, because certain people just have
you were
that.
one of those voices, by the way. I mean, there's been 3 minutes of adulation. I appreciate it. It means a lot. But honestly, people like me needed people like you. We needed people that were recognizable to stand up. All these movie stars and actors and where are you, And so when you really started speaking your mind, I can't tell you how important it was for those of us that were out here. I think you brought young people, and you are one of the reasons this conversation has expanded to the place that it has. So, look, I think it takes all of us, and I think we live in a very, very important time right now. And my message to everybody is you are needed. You are born now for a reason. Do something about it. Whatever you're guided to do something, because it's all hands on deck. We've got really, really freaky stuff going on all around us right now.
Oh, I know. And well, that's why I have a bazillion questions that I think you might want to plead the fifth on. And of course you can,
well, we'll
because
see.
I know, in a lot of ways, I feel like you are the foot soldier for Kennedy right now. That's the way I see it in a lot of ways. And so I know that there might be some things that are too touchy of a subject, but of course, I have people that are always up my ass, asking me, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And I'm like, I don't know anything. And the whole purpose of this podcast is nobody's right. Like, no, we're not right. We don't have any hard evidence on a lot of, we do when it comes to certain science, which is unfortunate that everything is getting so muddled. But, and then you are one of the leaders in that, and being able to sue people based on what you have with hard evidence. But there's so much misinformation out there now. I mean, I even feel like
and most of my hard evidence is that you don't have any evidence for the things that you're doing, right? I mean, like I would agree with you. There's not a lot of really clear answers. We are finding ourselves in a time where we're realizing so much of the construct we live in is built on pure bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's shocking.
I mean, I feel like the alt media has been captured now too, to a large degree. By what? I really don't even know. But it's like, is everybody getting a fucking phone call? Is everyone getting a knock at the door? Like, this is your script, stick with it. Or, some fucking green person's gonna come take you out. At this point, I will believe anything. I mean, I'm waiting for Trump to announce the new dimension that we're about to slip into. I mean, it's fucking wild out there, and everything is so out. Like, you would never even believe it. It just seems like the things of movies, and now I wonder if we're just living in a big movie. But we'll stay on Earth. We'll stay here in the actual present. But it's really interesting. I wanted to start with this podcast is for the people that unfollowed me because they thought I was crazy. So if I reach 4 people that tell another 4 people, then I don't care. And, even when Kennedy was running, of course I wanted him to be president. That was my first choice.
Yeah.
But because I feel like him just doing that one thing it's just so tied into everything else that's so monumental. And I don't think that most people understand that, especially people that were like, Dre's crazy. I fucking can't stand her. She must be a white nationalist because she didn't want a vaccine. All of this sort of stuff. But, I mean, that's been the way it's
exactly
been.
How those two lines go together too, right? It's like, oh, you don't like vaccines? You're a white supremacist. Like,
oh,
what?
Yeah. And then Trump stands with Israel. Oh, wait, I voted for him. So don't you like me now? But that still makes me a white nationalist. I don't understand. Who cares? Yeah. And that whole fucking thing's a whole other mess. But, the thing that we're, I guess, the most focused on is it's bioweapons. It's still war. Yeah. It's just war on us. And then it's been politicized, which it should never be politicized. And that's part of the thing with this show is depoliticizing all these topics that just, got away from us, that got into the hands of the government. And I mean, I know that the whole vaccine thing, starting with Reagan and the liability and all of that. I mean, that'll bring us into the glyphosate thing. But because this is I jump around all over the place because I'm psychotic. I'm a psychotic Great. Italian, Del. So just follow me and just you can keep me on track if I go off into the stratosphere. I'm not a podcaster. I am just a mom. That's it. I'm a mom and an actress who can't really do the acting thing anymore because of the insanity. But okay. I just want some people to know exactly who you are because I don't know how to do an intro. So I want you to just tell me about, how you were on the doctors, how you left that. You started the Highwire.
If you Wikipedia'd me, I'm like the world's greatest anti-vaxxer.
Right.
Getting children killed. Let's see what else. What are the other great things that they say about me? Propagandist that fights legal battles trying to spread infectious disease. How's that sound as an opening?
A really quick break to say we're glad you found the Ultra Free Podcast and hope you're enjoying this episode. A great way to support the podcast is to head over to the Ultra Free website to buy merch. Link in the show notes below. We have cool hats and hand-screened t-shirts, and we'd love to see you in them, so buy a few. Take photos and tag us on your socials to spread the Ultra Free vibes. Like and subscribe and leave comments when you have them. And remember, we don't need to be right. We just need to be free. Ultra Free. Now back to the episode.
That's good. You sound like
the truth is, I actually, depending how far back we want to go, I sort of started in theater. I grew up doing musical theater as a kid.
Shit.
So I have a whole performance background that sort of, I think, plays into a lot of this and where we would meet, right? I met my wife in an acting class in New York, but ultimately,
I didn't know that.
Life is what happens while you're making plans. Yeah, my biggest gig, actually, just, I don't talk about it a lot, was I was in New York right before I'd met my wife, and I got the Broadway touring company of Hair,
Get the
musical.
fuck out of here.
No, I played George Berger, which was like the lead, the rebel in the musical Hair, all over Europe, Germany, Belgium, Holland, Switzerland.
No fucking way.
Which was a total blast. I think it's like one of the greatest musicals ever written. And
I can't. I'm floored.
And it kind of plays into what I find myself in now. I mean, we might as well take this.
Yeah, because you're a maniac on stage.
And it's, what was really interesting about that was that in Hair, Hair, for people that don't know, this is like all about the 1960s, the hippies, just the big tribal love rock musical. It was huge. We were touring in Germany right after the wall had come down. So for them, they were going through this renaissance. So we were like packing stadiums. It was crazy. I'm like, the musical theater geek is suddenly, I'm like a rock star in stadiums, and it was so crazy. But
this is your best interview yet.
To bring it back to why I think it sort of plays into what I do, and I reflect on this a little bit. George Berger in the whole musical is about two lead characters, really. There's Claude and George. Claude wants to make his family happy. He's a hippie. He gets all the best songs, by the way. George Berger, I'm like the rocker, but if you really, the ballads all go to the Claude. But Claude's, we're all grappling with, being drafted, which I think is really interesting. My son right now, by the way, came back from school, and I mentioned something about Iran. He's like, yeah, great. Oh, I said, you keep eating that many cookies, you're going to get sick. He's like, hey, at least if I don't have diabetes, they can't draft me. And it was really weird to have my kid, I haven't talked anything about that, which means he's 17. They must be talking about this at school. I mean, didn't plan on getting into that at all, but this is what the whole musical is about, was this idea of being drafted. And in the end, Claude finally gives in. He's like the Christ figure that he just can't say no to his family, and he decides to just go, even though all the other hippies don't. And George Berger's like, no way, I'm never doing it. But what was interesting about doing that musical is I got to work with the original writer, Jim Rado. There was two writers, Jim Rado and Jerry Ragney, and Jim flew out to Germany where we were, rehearsing with the director. And right before the show went on the road, we've done 3 weeks of rehearsals. They pulled me aside and they said, George Berger is the star of any scene he wants to be in. This is his stage. This is we're seeing the world through his eyes. This is his musical, essentially. So it doesn't matter if you get inspired. We want you to be this free spirit. You're almost like a clown where wherever you're inspired, you can steal the scene. You can make it about whatever you want. And so I was like, oh, all right, it's great, cool, improvisational. But they didn't tell the rest of the cast. So a couple nights in, I start throwing some scene. I upstage somebody, and eventually about half the cast totally turned on me. There's like this revolt. They were going to quit if I wasn't fired. And I was trying to tell all of them, you don't understand. I was told I can take any scene I want, that's the spirit of this character. Like, yeah, sure. That's definitely what they told you. That makes no sense whatsoever. So there was this huge tension. In fact, 2 people quit in the cast because of me. Which felt bad. I was like, I wanted to be loved by everybody. It was sort of my nature. And anyway, the tour was amazing, and it was a great experience, but I grappled with, why did they do that? It just created this tension inside of the cast the whole time. Behind the scenes, I mean, the whole thing's this tribal love rock musical, but behind the scenes, we had all these fighting going on. And I realized, maybe a couple of years later, because I would think about it a lot, it's like, oh my God. Because my parents marched in the 60s, which was, I sort of grew up that my parents were total hippies, that, I was born in 1970, so probably right after the Summer of Love. But my parents would talk about how they were really into, in the 60s, fighting for freedom of education. They were really, fighting for, free speech. They're like, we weren't doing all the drugs. We weren't like the stoners. In fact, we really thought that was a distraction. And there was a battle between the people that were just fighting for free speech. And you're undermining us with all the drug use. And there was these internal turmoil going on. And I realized that was the genius of what Jim Rado did. That if we were just doing a musical, okay, it would have been okay. But they actually, by giving me that sort of mandate to go against the grain, they knew it would cause all of this tension inside of the cast, which I think actually made that musical represented in an even more honest way. And it's part of when you ask, like, what I do now, when we deal with like this vaccine issue and I'm getting attacked by newspapers or some, people sometimes even on my own side, sometimes I'm not anti-vaccine enough. I do reflect on that experience of how hard it was to go through that, have people I loved on this cast start hating me because I had a different mandate. I was on a different journey than they thought I was on. And I think I don't know if I'd be here if I hadn't been through that experience.
I mean, that's actually crazy. I mean, you were trained in theater.
Yeah.
The way they would say about all of us at this point, because no one fucking believes any of us. Even when I told my lawyer I was doing this, he's like, why? You think anybody fucking cares what you have to say? No one believes anything anymore. They're going to think that someone wrote your script. I'm like, you're right.
I don't think anyone's ever going to believe that someone would write the script we're hearing.
I mean, maybe not.
That makes you so cool. Like you seem so free and open and honest about where you're at, no matter what. And I think that's the beauty of what this podcasting space that we're all finding ourselves in is forget the rehearsed teleprompter where we can hear every network saying the exact same thing. I think we're craving, honesty and maybe is it humility? Like just saying we're just human, but being allowed to just be human again.
People are really dehumanizing each other, even when they're on the same side now. Every single little tiny piece of each party is now split into a bazillion different factions. I mean, everybody hates each other on both sides. It's insane. Yeah. And no one trusts all these pundits anymore. And everybody's questioning who, and we're afraid to speak too because we'll be censored. I mean, I can't say half of the things I would want to say. And I had my Instagram taken away for 3 months. For posting on geoengineering. Like it was like the last, and I'd been posting forever on it, but the minute I put up Marjorie Taylor Greene, she stepped down the day after and my Instagram was gone for 3 months. And I was like, crazy. Holy shit. So we had a fight with them over that. But
I'm pretty good at that too. You should watch out. I get more people kicked off of their platforms doing interviews. They're always like, I've never had that happen before. I'll try to keep it. We'll try to keep it inside the lane, whatever that lane is.
I'm the one who might go out of the lane. I mean, you get fired up because you're like a bigger Italian than I am. I don't even think you have any Italian in you. If
I do, it's a tiny little piece of this mutt for sure. Well, so I didn't really answer your question fully. Really quickly, that film and television and acting career, I ultimately really started falling in love with directing and I started as a stage director, I wanted to be a film director and found myself in Hollywood. But my break came somewhere where I never expected it, where I got a job shooting a camera for a Dr. Phil weekend where all these couples were fighting. And then someone asked me to go, they'd like, well, there's no producer around. Can you go over and ask some questions of the couple that's having the argument over there? We don't have any. We got to capture it. So I did it well. So all of a sudden I started getting work for the Dr. Phil show and then ultimately ended up as a producer on the daytime talk show, The Doctors, which was the first medical talk show really ever. I was the first producer that ever got sent out and started scrubbing into ORs with a camera and I'm shooting surgeries. I shot a sex change operation of the pregnant man, like the first pregnant man, which was a transgender woman that had become a man but still had her ovaries and got pregnant. And so there was the shots in like the famous magazine, like Pregnant with a Beard. And then after that, I went and shot that sex change operation and, all sorts of amazing experiences. But in that, Drea, I think just to wrap it up, I really realized how much I cared about health and sciences. It was such a bizarre thing. I spent about 6 or 7 years on that show and would find myself reading medical journals, trying to like understand this really heavy concept or issue that I wanted to do a show about. And I remember wanting to like go back to my 18-year-old self that dreamt of being a Broadway star or something like that, and tell him, you know, when you get older, you're going to be reading medical journals in your future. And I would never have believed it, but it is actually the passion of my life now. I ended up, while doing the doctors, stumbling on a story of a whistleblower inside the CDC that was saying, a guy named Dr. William Thompson, who was saying, we're committing scientific fraud in the vaccine safety studies. Super huge, controversial story. That led to me making a documentary about that whistleblower called Vaxxed, From Cover Up to Catastrophe. And that film, when you do a film about vaccines, really against the pharmaceutical industry, for sure, you're going to destroy your career on a medical talk show. But it became clear that pharma is controlling all of our television sets. So it was sort of a one-way ticket out of television, but it catapulted me. That film, Vaxxed, blew up worldwide. It was an absolute, I suppose, probably one of the most controversial films in the world. We got kicked out of the Tribeca Film Festival,
I remember,
which made it a huge media story. And then there was just lines down the block. For an entire year, I went to nothing but sold-out audiences doing Q&As for an entire year and sort of just wrap the story up. I think the thing that was interesting, that was about the MMR vaccine and autism. And I started very early on asking every audience before the Q&A would start. I would just say, would everyone with a vaccine injured child please stand up? I want to know, like, who are these people that are lined up down the block? The first time I did it, 3/4 of the audience stood up, and I felt like the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. I had made a documentary about this issue, but I thought it was a few people. It wasn't, 100 out of a room full of 120 people or 400 out of a room of 500 people. It was massive, and I ended up asking that question every screening, so 3 to 5 screenings a day, 5 days a week for an entire 1-year tour. And everywhere, every night, every screening, 3/4 of the room was standing up when it came to vaccine injury in their families. And I just was, I think that this issue that I'm now on, which is about vaccine safety, efficacy, what is the science behind it? I think this is the biggest cover-up. I think it is the biggest story in the history of mankind. Never has there been a product that has been less tested, that has more dangers to it, has had more government agencies covering it up, more financial institutions at stake in the middle of it. This is corruption on a scale that is absolutely unimaginable. It is unimaginable that this many doctors and scientists have all, I think, accidentally been a part of it. People will say, oh my God, you can ask me questions about it. Like, you mean my pediatrician's in on it? I mean, your pediatrician does not know jack shit about how vaccines were tested. They don't know what's wrong with them, and they have no idea how many children's lives are being destroyed by these things. I think it is the #1 cause now of the chronic disease epidemic in America that's sweeping the world. So that's who I am. I'm that guy with that opinion. And I get, I had an Atlantic article on me just last week, said something, I think the headline was, I am seriously upset that your children are vaccinated. I think that was the quote that they kind of took out of context. So but that's the headline about Bigtree.
Oh, my Lord. Okay, let's stay with the MMR vaccine for 1 minute, because I really don't know that much about all that. I really don't. So this is, I'm not going to have some kind of scientific or intellectual conversation about it. I just know that it's always been a thing. My kids have all the vaccines, except for they have all of them. And I don't want to. My ex wanted them vaccinated when they were little. It just seemed like the easier thing to do when they were little. My daughter is 18. My son is 14. I stopped at the Tdap. I was like, fuck you guys. I'm not doing any more. My doctor dropped us. She didn't drop us over the Corona one. She dropped, and she was their doctor their entire lives. She dropped us over the Tdap vaccine. And I'm like, what is that? Like, why would somebody do that? I think I talked about it on your show too. And I don't really know anything about the Tdap vaccine, but I
Yeah,
do know that my
stupid
son was
vaccine.
very sick every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
But what is, and I also, your last film, which was, oh my God,
An Inconvenient
because I'm
study.
so old, I can't remember the names of anything.
It's okay. I would.
Yes, an Inconvenient study.
Yeah.
My girlfriend, my producer, was actually asking if Zervo actually got fired. I don't know why that was
If the lead scientist actually got fired.
Scientist, yeah. But you can plead the fifth on that one. Maybe you don't want to talk
Well,
about
no.
that.
Look, I mean, as far as I know,
matter.
he wasn't fired. And for anyone listening, that film was about. I challenged the head of infectious disease at Henry Ford Health, who had dinner with me back in 2016 when I was touring with the film Vaxxed I was just talking about.
He knew you were filming him, or no? No, he didn't know.
Not then. I didn't film him at that dinner. At that dinner, we were just having dinner, 2016, and we had a mutual friend, someone that had done a lot of work with him, so he felt obligated, and we sat down at dinner, and he basically talked about how pro-vaccine he was, how great he thought vaccines were. He knew my film Vaxxed was very anti-vaccine, but I think he found me fascinating. I mean, we had a really great conversation. In that conversation, I said, well, look, hey, I might be wrong. I'm just getting involved in this investigation. It sure seems like everywhere I go, lots of people are saying vaccines are injuring their kids. But, why don't we get to the bottom of it? Would you ever, you sit on one of the greatest medical institutions that does research, your research institution, would you ever do a study looking at the health outcomes of vaccinated kids compared to completely unvaccinated kids? Just ask simple questions. Who does have more autism? Who has more ADD, ADHD? Who has more diabetes and cancer? All these things that are just skyrocketing in our children over the last just couple of decades. Really from the 1980s, Drea. In 1980s, our children had a chronic disease rate of about 12.4%. So meaning they either had a neurological disorder or an autoimmune disease, just above 10% of the population of kids. Now that rate is nearing about 50 to 54% of our kids just in 40 years. So that's the greatest decline in human health that has ever been recorded. I will say I wouldn't be in this investigation. I wouldn't even care about this issue if we had the healthiest kids we've ever seen. The opposite is true. We are the sickest nation in the world, in America, which is shocking. And we have the sickest generation of kids that has ever been seen. Well, it's a really good question. Why America? Don't we have the best food supply? Don't we have the best water systems? Don't we have the best hospital systems? I mean, if we don't, then we should be getting to the bottom of that, because I was under the impression that America first. I mean, we're the most egotistical nation in the world. You grow up in this country. I mean, foreigners can't stand us when we travel. We're so full of ourselves. We think we're the greatest in the world. So it's a really good question. Why are we so sick? Why are we so degenerated? Anyway, so he ended up doing that study. Dr. Zervos did take up my challenge it took 4 years for me to talk him into it. In 2020, he finally did a study of 20,000 kids in the Henry Ford Health Systems database. Really, really good data, by the way, that tracks every decision those kids made. Even if they went to hospitals in different states out of the system, it was still a Henry Ford Health insurance system, so they had those records. It's 20,000 kids, 2,000 of them were unvaccinated, and they just compare health outcomes, and he refused to publish it. And that's why for 2 years I said, look, it was sort of a gentleman's bet at a dinner. I just said, if I'm wrong, prove me wrong, but whatever you find, publish it. Yeah, he's like, I'll definitely publish it. And then he wouldn't. So I called him and said, why won't you publish this study? And he said to me on the phone, Drea, he said, when I agreed to do this study, Del, I had no plan on agreeing to ending the vaccine program, ending the childhood vaccine program. I was like, what would that study have to do with that? He's like, I was like, it's that bad. He's like, it's that bad. So anyway, he was terrified of the study, afraid to publish it. That's when I said, let's get some dinner. I took recording equipment and some
mafia.
pen
you went
cameras.
Full mafia.
I went full, yeah. I went full mafia. It was right. And I recorded our conversation, and it's the heart of the film. And it's really, really a powerful film, mostly because you get to hear his own words. You hear him bragging about how pro-vaccine he is. You hear him talking about how this study blew him away, how shocked he is. And then really he admits in the film, like at this dinner, the only reason he won't publish it is that in the current climate of the pressures, I think he even says the politicization of it, that it would be the end of his career. It would be the end of his legacy. And he's just not going to do it. And so that's what that film is about. And then just for people who are curious, like it showed 2.5 times the rate of autoimmune and neurological disorders amongst vaccinated kids compared to unvaccinated. 6 times the rate, actually, of neurodevelopmental disorders, 6 times the rate of autoimmune disease. It's really a horror show. And what's amazing about it is this was a guy that had stated he was pro-vaccine. So if there was any bias to how the study would have been done, you had to imagine the bias was going to try to make the vaccinated kids look healthier. This thing does the exact opposite. So the film's done like, I think, 100 million views worldwide. I just was in Europe traveling with it. I'm about to go to Japan and Italy, want to have me out to show the film. So it's an exciting, wild moment around this discussion.
Wow. Well, that's too bad because his legacy, it's not probably going to age very well.
No, I don't think being caught on camera saying you're a chicken and you're willing to let children get sick and die over hurting your own reputation. It's not a good look. I feel bad for him, really. He's a nice guy. I think you see weak character. Even he says in the film, I'm not a good person. I'm not one of those heroes. You know what I mean?
Intense.
It's intense and it's sad. Yeah. It's so pathetic.
But he might have gotten that phone call, which I feel like a lot of people probably get those fucking phone calls. Okay. Well, there's the thing in that film for me, and even in Vaxxed, which I don't really remember because I saw that. I actually think I saw it when it came out. What was the timeline of Vaxxed and the pandemic?
That came out April of 2016.
It
traveled all of 2016, and it was really about autism. It has really powerful stories of parents. We follow like 5 or 6 different family stories, before and after footage, before
it's so
really the MMR vaccine, and then watching children that were saying, "I love you, mommy, I love you, daddy," and then they go off to get their shots, and the next day, I mean, the parents don't realize that day, those are the last words they were ever going to hear spoken to them from their kids. It just, the thing is so, and then the movie was very powerful. Robert De Niro came out to support it and said, when we were at Tribeca, before we got kicked out, and it's his film festival, he said, this film needs to be seen by everybody. He said, I have a child with autism, and my wife, Grace, and I believe that vaccines contributed to that. So anyway, did he bring the film?
Did he bring the film to Tribeca?
He didn't bring it, but we had sent it. We had contacts that got it to him. So he was definitely influential in getting us into the festival, and then was on the news sort of, he didn't take it away, but he said there's just so much pressure that his partners kind of forced him. He even said in news, I don't know what happened here. I'm going to investigate it myself. I still think this is a film that needs to be seen, but they're saying that it was a crazy moment, Drea, that the argument they were making is that the other filmmakers were going to pull their films out of the festival if ours screened there, which is the biggest pile of baloney. I mean, you're in the arts, right? There's a few milestones as a filmmaker: getting into Cannes, getting into Sundance, getting into Tribeca Film Festival. I mean, those are the top festivals in the world. You don't get in there and suddenly throw a hissy fit because next door is, and think about it, Fahrenheit 9/11, which accused the president of the United States of bombing the World Trade Centers, played at these festivals. No one complained about that. This was a
Strange.
film about a real whistleblower saying, we're lying about the safety of the MMR vaccine. And it looks like we covered up a study at the CDC that does show it could cause autism. You really think that there was young filmmakers like, I won't be seen next to that film? It is such a pile of baloney. It's insane.
Well,
and
I think it was in
De Niro
preparation.
said exactly that.
I think it was in preparation because these motherfuckers already knew what they were working on. If they knew they were going to bomb another fucking building of that size, maybe those Fahrenheit films would not have made it through into any film festivals. But
good point.
2017 was right before they were, and this thing has been set, our pandemic was set in motion for so much time when you look at all these patents and all of that. So, and those are some pieces of proof for the vaccine and stuff, all the different patents and all of the technology that was in there. So, and even when you look at now, even the Epstein files and all of the little,
we're seeing
smatterings
Bill
between
Gates and Epstein worked on these pre-pandemic test runs, right? Which were just, ironic when you see videos of them, using the exact same language they ended up using, talking about how we all need to wear masks. I mean, it's like so much of this was pre-rehearsed. It's really strange.
It's insane.
Yeah.
So I think that Vaxxed was like really it was the foreshadowing event for that. There was no way. And that's why they kicked you guys out of there.
You know what I think it is? I mean, I think it's not necessarily, at least this is my perspective of it now, and why this issue continues to be so controversial for the powers that be, for the governments of the world. More and more people. I don't think this is a controversial issue anymore for mommies, like mommy blogs. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's having an open conversation about it.
But some of them,
and that's what
religion for them.
That's what Vaxxed changed. But what I think Vaxxed did, or any real conversation about vaccines, is whether they want pandemics or not. I really, truly believe that you're hearing a lot of talk about overpopulation of the planet. Bill Gates talks about it. Everyone at the World Economic Forum talks about it. It's kind of a liberal thought, by the way. I grew up a progressive liberal from Boulder, Colorado. Told you my parents were hippies. I remember thinking and growing up believing that humans are a disease on this planet. I actually think that is a central tenet of liberal thinking, that humans are bad, nature is good. We see ourselves apart from nature, and I wanted to write plays about how bad we were to the earth. I mean, I was that into that environmental perspective, and so in that belief, there's this idea that we've got to reduce the population, that we're contaminating the earth, we're poisoning the waters, we're poisoning the air. There's too many of us, too many of us, too many of us. And so whether or not we've hit that max point, and I'll be honest, I think a society where there's an animal growing on a rock floating in space and it's growing faster than every other animal, or seems to be proliferating, certainly there should probably be some conversations about, is there a point where we overcome our resources, where there's not enough resources to keep this species alive? This is the conversation every major world leader is not just having now. I think they've had probably since the 1920s, 30s, 40s. You can go all the way back in Club of Rome and all of this research. There's this concern we're going to overwhelm our resources. And so with that mindset, let's take this sinister idea of it away. Let's just say you, Drea, you are, the queen of Germany and I'm the king of America. And we've got all these people, and there's a lot of them stacked on top of each other. And we are starting to see, geez, am I going to always be able to get oil from here or water from there? Let's just say we're naturally having this conversation together. What we would come to is a conclusion that if we ever have to reduce our population, guaranteed this conversation's happening. If you have a problem thinking it's happening, then you are not living on this planet and have never really led a large company even. You have conversations that don't necessarily make the mainstream, and Bill Gates is making this loud and proud. But what would be the best way to reduce the population? At some point, let's say we just realize, oh my God, we have too many people. You can't just roll ovens out in the street, we could grab the poor people and throw them in and burn them and kill them. That's never going to look very good. You could try maybe what Canada's up there doing, which is just, legalizing euthanasia for crazier and crazier reasons. Are you depressed? Are you 13 and thinking, you don't like going through puberty? You could just kill yourself. I mean, that is like the MAID program is getting that close in Canada because they really do. That's that liberal thinking. There's too many people. We want you to start killing yourself. Just if you don't want to be here, then leave life immediately. So that's one of the approaches. But truly, to get to the end of this, the greatest delivery system, the most ethical delivery system would be one that isn't just graphic and horrible. What you'd want to do is just recognize we have a population program. You want to select those people that are probably more creative, able to work, better workers. You're not going to want the people that are all playing video games and smoking weed all day. They can't be the ones left overpopulating the planet. We got to stick to those of us that are productive. And we've seen these conversations throughout history. What would be the best way to do that? The best way, Drea, to do that would be a program where everyone just marches into this doctor that's more like a priest. They go, you never question anything they say. They are there for your health. And you walk in, you hand them your little baby, and they just will give as many as they tell you to take. Does it 1, 2, 20? And you're like, wow, geez, my baby's screaming, crying. This seems like a weird ritual, but I guess if this white person lab coat is telling me this is what I'm supposed to do, I guess I just did. Everyone before me did it, and everyone's around me doing it, and I'm not asking any questions. I'm not asking what's in this, what's in those. It doesn't really matter. The doctor would honestly say to you, it doesn't really matter, Drea. You need these to go to school, so what difference does it make? You can't avoid them, so why bother yourself with what's in them? If we have a program like that, and then it's going up through adulthood, now we got teenagers and college students, young women. Now, what are you going to want to do? You want to control population. You have to control fertility. Fertility is the best way. Let me just pick and choose those that can procreate. Let's say the really good grade college students, maybe they procreate, and the ones, like I said, smoking weed and staying home, maybe not so much. I know there's people right now, Dre, I'm probably not helping you regain your followers, but just bear with me a second. I'm with you. I'm fucking with you. Because it's so clean. And you just need
simple. Anderson Cooper to fucking say it. Then
we already do this on animal populations. We use a vaccination program on deer in America to curb their fertility so we don't have herds of deer running through our streets. It's a vaccine program. Bill Gates got caught in Kenya with a vaccine program for women. It was a tetanus vaccine program, and there's a couple of priests, I think, working in the missions there that just found it curious. Why are we only giving a tetanus vaccine to the women? Don't the men have the same risk of tetanus? And so they grabbed a bunch of the vaccines and they ran out of the country with them and gave them to 3 different groups to investigate, and all of them came out and said, there is a toxin in this vaccine that's designed, they knew it was designed to end fertility for the women that were being given it. And so that is why I think the vaccine program, it probably can do, I know that you go a little bit further than, you're talking about nanotechnology. I don't go that far. I'm not a super conspiracy theorist. I don't know. You're alluding to, we could get into it, but I don't need to go that far. Where I'm going is what I know we already have done, what we already do with vaccines. And so I believe you are deciding the fate of human beings, those that live, those that don't, those that are sick, those that aren't. All of that is controlled if we can be injected with products we have no control over. And that's why they hate anyone that puts out a movie like Vaxxed. That's why they're really going to hate an Inconvenient study, because what it shows is everyone is getting sick from these products. And so But I think the addiction these nations have to it, why they don't seem to want to let it go, it is the greatest tool to control the species that exists, and they don't want to let go of that control. They are so utterly terrified, and they tell us they're terrified that we will somehow kill ourselves off this planet, that will overrun our resources. Therefore, we must have control over your body, which is all this is all about. It is about having control. The government wants control of your body. They don't give a crap if you're spreading measles to your neighbor. They don't really. That's advertising. They don't care, whether you get tetanus or not. What they care about is they want control of your body. They want control of your children's bodies. And that is all that they have with the vaccine program, is the greatest destruction of freedom that exists in a country that calls itself free. If you don't control what goes into your body, if you're not allowed to control that, like when Joe Biden said you can't go to your job unless you get a COVID vaccine, you have just entered the same rights as a farm animal. You are now a farm animal. The farmer wants to inject you with whatever they want, and there's not a damn thing you're going to be able to do about it, and we're going to inject your kids, not a damn thing you can do about it. And so to me, beyond just a health issue, the main reason I'm on this issue is I think this is the greatest example that America is on the verge of destroying its entire tenet, which is the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness.
I mean, you should
freedom.
be president.
Yeah. What?
You and Kennedy should be presidents of the United States
I hate
of
that.
America.
I was just in D.C. I hate that.
Oh, I'm sure. So, okay. I mean, but the other thing is the only way, I mean, people have been very brainwashed. That is definitely a thing. But we've never seen anything like this until COVID. Like, this was really, no one knew that the government was trying to control them or their children up until that point. At least no one was thinking about it except for certain types of people. Like, I sure as hell wasn't, which is weird because, like, I've told you before, I think we made a music video about mass vaccinations in 2010, but that was really like analyzing the whole Bush administration and just, 9/11 and all of these things where, I mean, I think that's when this generation's world changed.
Yeah.
I'm sure that this has been going on for, millions of years with, all kinds of deceptions and, resets of societies and all of this sort of stuff. But what we know, people that are born in the 70s and our kids, this, and then when you bring up nanotech, which of course I will ask questions about that.
Sure.
And then you can plead the fifth on everything. But
I don't plead the fifth. I'll be shot. I haven't found myself ever pleading the fifth. I say everything I mean.
Okay.
I mean what I say. I'm totally open. Maybe I'm wrong, but
what are you going to say about the cabinet over there in D.C.? What do you want to say about the fucking cabinet, Del? Because I have people asking me all kinds of questions. I haven't really been following it that closely. All the different. The one thing I did follow was when Hatfield was fired or pushed out, and I found that really freaking interesting.
Yeah.
And to see his press tour and what was happening and the way it was developing, and then I sort of abandoned that. But like, what happened there?
I don't know about Hatfield. I will say this. I think we've all had moments where you have to like fire somebody, and it's a really weird experience. It doesn't matter what business you're in, because suddenly it's really illegal for you to state why. Certainly publicly, it's defamation, so you don't get to say anything about it. And then that person usually has signed some form of, a protection, I'm not going to say anything about, but they do. They go out and tell their friends. They tell whatever version of the story they want everyone to believe, the best version of themselves. That's the nature of humanity. And so it doesn't mean they're wrong. It doesn't mean that that's not the way it is. But I've personally watched different stories get told, and there's not a damn thing I can do about it as a boss. And so I always at least give some leeway to that. But there's a lot of Vinay Prasad just got fired. I want to know why. He was like really big into investigating. He was one of the ones saying we're not going to have a flu shot if it cannot prove to stop the virus that's in circulation. Then we're not going to approve that flu shot. What did that guy do that he should get fired? I don't really know, and I am questioning myself. I think that there's what Bobby wants and there's what the Trump administration wants. And then there's maybe what they're afraid of. And there's polls that get involved and polling that's happening. And you've got this glyphosate. You've got the administration now sort of backing up this attempt from Monsanto and Bayer to get liability protection, which is just one of the scariest thoughts of all times.
Why? What does that do for our national security? Like what? I mean, even the quote coming out of the White House for Kennedy, it doesn't even it didn't even sound half fucking intelligent, to be honest with you. I mean, it didn't. No. It didn't even sound like you could convince me even on a tiny level. But half of America doesn't even know what glyphosate is.
That's shocking. I mean, because I feel like those of us that do, we talk about it so much, like ad nauseum. But should we tell everyone what glyphosate is? Should I give you my 1 minute breakdown?
Go.
Okay.
Yes.
So glyphosate was an industrial pipe cleaner. It's a chemical that actually attracts rusts and metals. So if your pipes, like your sewage pipes or giant industrial pipes, were all clogged, you'd pour this chemical in and it would suck all the rust and pull it out, like clean those pipes like spick and span. That's what it was designed to do. Then someone spilled it on the ground somewhere and it killed every damn thing in sight. Every plant it touched, it is just incredibly deadly. So they said, hey, let's market this as our herbicide. It kills weeds. Then some genius said, hey, what if we could genetically modify plants like food so that they wouldn't die when they came in contact with this deadly chemical? Wouldn't that be amazing? Then we could just drench our food in it, kill all the weeds around it, and make farming easier. And that's what they did. So when you hear genetically modified crops, what that means is crops that have been altered to be able to be drenched in a deadly chemical that kills every plant in sight except for these Franken plants. And so these Franken plants are now what we eat. It's 80 to 90% of our food supply is Franken food that never existed in nature and is being drenched in this chemical that kills everything in sight. And it couldn't possibly affect our own stomachs, our own bodies, because we're not natural like the plants we're eating. And so that is what it's become. It is the most ubiquitous weed killer. It's in Roundup, which is the #1 weed killer by Bayer Monsanto. So that's it. 80 to 90% of your crops, genetically modified crops. It's terrible on your gut. It also is naturally, because it's so deadly, it's an antibiotic. So it's killing all the bacteria in your stomach when you eat. Besides, breaking down your gut biome, which is now making you have a leaky gut, which leads to all sorts of autoimmune disease, probably leads to cancers and God knows what else. And then in a real stroke of genius, and this is something people need to pay attention to, is your bread. Wheat is actually different. Like when you see the bread, Drea, and it says non-GMO, that actually means nothing. In fact, it's a warning signal to you. And here's what I mean. Non-GMO would mean it resists, it can't die when it's drenched with this chemical. Wheat is different. They want it to die. At the very last stage with wheat being grown, there were times where the winter would come too early and kill the wheat before they were able to, and so farmers would lose money because the wheat died before they got to it. So now they control that. When the wheat, as soon as it's ready, they drench it with this deadly herbicide chemical, glyphosate, Roundup, so it kills it dead. You see these just dead-looking wheat fields, and then they come right after that, and they pick it all up and grind your flour, and the last thing it ever touched was being drenched in this deadly chemical. So that's glyphosate. So when you see non-GMO, what it means is we didn't genetically modify your wheat because we wanted it to die when we drenched it in this chemical. So you aren't like, no matter what you do, you're eating this stuff everywhere. It's in breast milk. It's in urine. It's in everything. And I think it's definitely killing us. It's lost billions of dollars in lawsuits now. I think there's 700 lawsuits currently underway against this product. It's winning every single case. And now Donald Trump has just said this deadly chemical is a national security issue because why? Bayer Monsanto, I believe, essentially just blackmailed Donald Trump. What they said is, there's not a farmer in your country, realistically. There's a few organic and regenerative farms, but mostly all of farming is totally addicted to farming using this chemical. They're using our genetically modified seeds, and then they drench them with this chemical. They have no other way. They don't know how to grow food any other way. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to immediately pull our glyphosate product out of circulation in America to say, F you, Donald Trump. We're going to destroy every farm in America. They won't know what to do. They won't know how to farm, and you will starve to death. Or you buy a ton of it. You go to the Supreme Court and tell them, give them liability protection so that none of these assholes can sue us any longer. Protect us from being sued by all the people claiming it's causing their cancer. Protect us from that. And as a last little bow on it, take that environmentalist you have working over at HHS that has been fighting us and in our face our whole lives. Parade him out in front of a television and make him get us hands and knees and say, we need Bayer, we need Monsanto, or we'll all starve to death. That's what just happened. It's
oh my God, it's fucking infuriating. Gross. Oh my fucking God.
I've never said it like that. I hope Bobby's not upset. That's my perspective. He didn't say that, but I watched my brother have to go through that. One of the greatest environmentalists of all times. And I mean this, that guy loves children and people so much that he just put up with that to try and fix the other problems he's trying to deal with, to maybe make our children healthier and have real food and better, food in our schools. He probably is looking at losing his job if he doesn't do it. And that is how that ugly, disgusting government that we have works.
Yes. And I said this early on too, with when they got in there. And everyone's like, you voted for Trump. You were voting for that kook Kennedy and this and that. And I'm like, and then everybody was very excited about the possibilities of what might change. I never thought things were really going to change. I thought we were buying time. That was it. I was like, we're buying time, and maybe there'll be some cool maneuvers that might happen in between. But then Trump ushered out the oracles and the palantirs and all of these things. And I was like, this all ties into all of the mania. So it looks like we're fast-tracked now. But with the whole medical freedom thing, which is not just medical freedom, this is our life. This is it. I mean, either they're going to throw a bomb on us, from another country, or our country is going to continue to bomb us every day with their own, I'm all about the geoengineering, from the food to the vaccines. And I kept saying over and over again, this isn't over. It's not like we just go to bed now, because Kennedy's not going to be able to do half the things that everybody thought he'd be able to do when he got in there. The only way it's going to work is if we keep fighting and keep fighting and keep fighting and keep fighting. And maybe still it won't work. But, a lot of people are now looking at the administration in total disdain. I'd like to have hope for everybody that's in there, even including Trump. Sometimes I'm like, I want to have hope that there are certain moves that can be made at some point. I don't know. Maybe, we can think that maybe, I just fucking learned about all this psychotic QAnon stuff. I was like, maybe there's a kernel of truth in something like that. Maybe that'll give us some hope.
You're too stupid. They got it worked out. It's all going to work out.
Who knows? Yeah. I'm like, wow, that would be incredible if that shit was true. Because there's like half truths in there. You know what I mean? And then there's the craziness. But I do really feel like I don't know what the solution is, but I can't help but also feel like you mentioned the nihilism of the liberals, and I never thought about it like that as I was growing up. But if you really do sit around and think about it, we have been really trained to hate ourselves.
Yeah.
We've been trained to hate ourselves, and especially on the left. There's all the artists are on the left. We're all nihilists. We're all buying into all the kinds of, the literature that is, and maybe that's because we're sensitive or whatever, or we can take on the responsibilities of the world. But we've been taught that everything is our fault, everything. And then they separated us with the vaccine. But the other thing I just want to say about that is they were showing up, there was so much news out there that was an alternative idea for the vaccine. And now there's so much information out there about childhood vaccines too. And the real separation I see is everybody who's able to understand that they're really bad guys pushing really bad things onto us. And we're still saying, yes, I'll comply. And that is the real separation of humanity, I think, because as much as I want to pull people with me and say, no, don't do that. You're standing in front of a fucking train that's going to hit you in 2 minutes. And they're like, but I want to stand here. This is my destiny.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but it's not. And I know we can't take everybody with us, but I do feel like, babies don't know the difference. Little kids don't. We do. A lot of people were like sheep to the slaughter with this last rollout of the vaccine. And I don't know what's coming next. And your whole thing is informed consent.
Yeah.
It's the ICAN.
Informed Consent Action Network. ICAN is my nonprofit.
And all of the things the things that we're dealing with here in America, we have no consent over anything. We don't have consent over how they spray us all day. People still think that's an insane conspiracy theory, but it's not. It's not a theory. It's a conspiracy against us. I don't even know what the fuck they're doing. There's no real solid answers aside from, okay, depopulation. But if you tell that to your neighbor who doesn't believe that anybody could ever be so evil, no one believes it. The only way people are going to believe it if somehow like someone like Anderson Cooper or the chicks on The View, or I don't know. And still, even though legacy media has no following anymore, if they say it, it will be gold standard somehow. And it makes no sense to me. But like, how much do we try to convince people that this isn't okay? And we have no consent. So the people who want to take care of themselves, we can't. It's in our food.
I think, I try to approach these conversations as reasonably as I can. I still have a liberal heart, right? I still do care about the environment. I'd love for my kids to go fishing in a river like, Tom Sawyer and pull out a fish and eat it and not worry about mercury poisoning. You know what I mean? Like, I want to live in that world. I got to believe with all of modern technologies, we're capable of having just pristine beauty everywhere. I have to believe after all these years on this planet, there's got to be a way to find peace. There's got to be a way we can love each other again. Like, have we given up on Eden? Are we given up on some utopian value system, which I feel is like the liberal perspective? We want utopia, but we want it through authoritarian measures. And I think that that's what I've realized. What I've realized is the problem with this utopian idea that I grew up with is that, for everyone to be equal and everyone to just have all the beauty, for us to have a clean environment, people are too stupid. They need laws forced upon them to make sure they don't throw their garbage in the street. They need laws upon them to make sure that they don't pollute, that their car doesn't put out too much. In fact, the car companies need laws upon them. We need laws upon, we have to make sure that there's laws on what you can eat and what you can't eat. There's laws on how you raise your kids. There's laws on whether you can sleep with your baby. We need laws on what, how many vaccines your child needs to have in order to protect my kid. We need laws on what you're allowed to make. We need laws on your taxes. We need laws on if you're too rich, you have to give some of that back to me. We have laws on if you're getting money given to you by those that were too rich, you can only spend it here. We need law. And so you see, the problem is, I get it. At the beginning, there's like this big, beautiful, open heart. We care about everybody. But in order to get to this little kumbaya space, it needs such an iron-fisted grip of only, and we all talk about it. Honestly, as a Democrat, I remember dreaming of a benevolent dictator. I just want a dictator that's a good guy, right? That was what, and I think Obama was the closest thing we ever got. And I voted for him twice, by the way. I thought that is the smartest guy in the room, and I think we should just say, screw the Senate, screw the Congress, let that guy dictate everything we do on this planet. That's how deep I used to be into liberal thinking. And if the liberals are listening right now, am I wrong? Am I misrepresenting how we all stood? It was like, oh my God, finally someone, he's black, he's dealt with racism, he's made it all the way through, he's got great ideas, just screw forget our founding fathers in any dream, forget checks and balances, hand that guy the keys and let's do whatever he says. Right?
Okay. I checked out. I was like, fuck
I was
this.
there.
I was like,
it didn't turn out so good.
No,
I'm not.
So wait, when did you stop caring about? When was the? Look, we tried to put people in office this time around, so I know.
And I'm directly involved. Like I am personally, I take some personal responsibility right now for an Iranian war that is the last thing I would ever want. And I'm like, I was Bobby Kennedy's director of communications. Without Bobby Kennedy, is Donald Trump in this position? I have liberal friends saying, congratulations, dude. You just started World War III. I'm that guy. I find myself in that position. So you're right. Whether we just voted on a ballot or we got more involved like I did, you make choices. You're trying to get something of value to take place, and that's what I was doing when I was liberal. So were you asking me when did that change, or when did I jump ship on that?
Would you ever vote again?
Yes.
Oh, yeah?
I absolutely, yeah, because I still think voting matters. Now, will we ever have great candidates? Will we have people that, can we believe what happens there? I don't know, but what I cannot do is just throw in the towel altogether. I still look at what we've done with Robert Kennedy Jr. Robert Kennedy Jr. just took all of the heavy metals out of our baby food and out of our formulas, something that New York Times, Washington Post, every journalist has reported on these contaminants known to be in baby food or infants' food for decades. It's now out because Robert Kennedy Jr. has that job. I'm watching Kellogg's and all of these fluorescent dyes that we know are poisoning our kids, causing all sorts of health issues, including attention deficit disorders and problems in their education. We're watching those chemical dyes being removed from our food supply. So win-win. Like you said, I never expected Bobby Kennedy was going to be doing everything. I've watched him offer to America a vaccine program that has half as many vaccines as we've been being given. And they'll say it's anti-science, really, because it's the exact science that Germany believes in. It's the exact science and the settled science that Denmark is working with. By the way, they have healthier kids than we do. They don't have polio and smallpox returning to their nations. So why wouldn't we say, hey, let's go back to a schedule that is half as robust as the one in America and seems to have healthier children. Now, sure, they could be healthier for other reasons other than those vaccines. But while we're dipping our toes into why are our kids so damn sick, can we make some changes to things other nations are doing that don't seem to be having negative repercussions? So he's done that. He's cut our vaccine program in half. He's removing chemicals from our food. He's removing chemicals from our baby's food. He's investigating fluoride in our water and seeing if that's okay. He's on a mission now to put real whole foods in our schools again so that my kids are eating a piece of chicken, a piece of steak, a vegetable instead of Fritos, a Hostess cake, and a Coca-Cola, which has got to lead to smarter kids, more focused in our schools. So, Drea, yes, I'm going to vote because those are all great things. Are there other, things smeared all over it and making it seem ugly at the moment? Yes, but I believe our vote still counts. I believe that when I knew Hillary Clinton wanted to win and Donald Trump won, there was no way Donald Trump was from the machine and this time too. There's no way that our networks that are clearly propaganda being run by has to be CIA and some sort of deep state because they're all on the same script. Who wrote that script? CBS and NBC and ABC are all using the same script. Who's writing that script? So whoever's writing that script hated Donald Trump, hated Bobby Kennedy, and yet enough people overcame a propaganda from the 24-hour-a-day news cycle that chose Kamala, that chose Biden when Biden never even had a primary. The guy was staggering around stages. We knew he wasn't capable. And then they just don't have their own primary and they just usher Kamala in. We're watching democracy being crushed right before our eyes. And for me, Dre, I do want to say this. No matter what happens, I was a one-issue voter in the last election. And that was Kamala and Joe Biden were both saying we're going to end misinformation, meaning we're going to end free speech. The misinformation was people like you and me. I was telling the truth. In fact, everything I've said on my show, The Highwire, I still stand by. I think it all has stood up. Masks didn't work. The vaccine didn't stop transmission. I called that out the day before, days before anyone got that vaccine. I said, this vaccine can't stop transmission. Not because I was psychic, because I went to the FDA emergency use authorization document where it admitted that. The news was lying to us, and I said that on my show, so I've been really accurate. But our own government was spreading misinformation, and then that government was going to decide what good information was. That was the end of free speech. And so it doesn't matter. You have no other right if you don't have the right to fight for those rights. If you don't have the right to speak out for your position, for your perspective, to demand science, can I see the evidence? How do you know the Pfizer vaccine was properly tested? Am I allowed to ask that? If I can be censored, then I can be silenced, and then America is silenced, and then we have no more freedom whatsoever. So there was only one vote on the table. Was Trump the greatest pick in the world that I could imagine? Oh, hell no. But he wasn't saying I'm going to end free speech as a campaign slogan, and the other side was.
Of course. But then right when he got in, there was all kinds of fucking things that you could and couldn't say about certain people or whatever. And it's like,
So
I was
he
like,
lied.
Jesus Christ, come on. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? And now that we don't have to use Epstein's or or I don't know, say a confessional at the Vatican to surveil on people, now we have AI. Now we have a new company that's going to come in and monitor every fucking move we make. But anyhow, I won't make you talk about any of that stuff.
I think that's I do think AI is probably scarier than anything we can imagine. At least that's what Elon Musk has said, and he's building it, and a lot of these guys come running out of the buildings. I've been working on AI for 20 years, and it's like they built the monsters. Like Frank's like, don't go in there. Do not go in there. I can't believe what I've done. I mean, I've watched that happen enough times that I'm just like, what the hell are we doing?
Well, okay. Well, then the fucking informed consent thing.
Yeah.
It is we have not consented to fucking anything. We haven't consented to the air we're breathing now. I mean, you have it worse than we do in Austin. I have never experienced more sky spray in my life as when I was there. I was deathly ill when I was there. I was there for a month and a half filming a show that you're probably going to love. So only could film it in Austin.
All right. I love it.
But we all couldn't believe what was going on in the sky. It was really out of control, and it's bad here. There's all of this gene editing now with the food supply. Forget about even the glyphosate, and forget about this liability thing. And I don't know that a lot of people and a lot of liberals understand what Reagan did in '86 and now what's about to happen with this glyphosate thing, and
Yeah.
7.6 billion for the next 21 years. Is that the number? Something crazy like that, that they will agree to pay out $7.6 billion in liability. I mean, I remember
I
when
think that
Kennedy.
just settles the cases. My understanding is that just settles the cases that exist right now, and then
Holy
you're done.
shit.
We're out. We're
I mean, I
out.
remember when Kennedy sued for that man who, I don't know if it was over the oats. I mean, people love oatmeal. It's fucking contaminated. Don't fucking touch it.
I
And that
know.
guy was, I think Kennedy sued for $22 million. I have to tell all my friends that are even lawyers in New York that don't, they're like, Kennedy got brain worms and he's just this. And I'm like, and he's a conservative. And I'm like, no, he sued. Like, I have to explain to them what he's done. I'm like,
Yeah.
where is your mind? But anyhow, forget about that. People who don't want to know, at this point, I'm not as worried about people who don't want to know, don't know. But a lot of people who don't want to know are watching me because they're like, what the fuck is this maniac gonna do now? So I want them, even if it's a couple of people who tell a couple of people, maybe they can, save each other every now and then. But I think that the severity of some of this stuff is not tangible for a lot of people. I think they just don't believe that there's anyone out there that would do anything like this. And then you take these Epstein files, which is, and I'm only using this as an example because it seems to be the only frickin' thing people want to talk about. And they only want to talk about it in terms of it. No one cared about child trafficking during the Biden administration. No one cared. It was there was a movie about it, The Sound of Freedom.
Yeah.
All they wanted to do was critique the film as, the headlines were brain worms for conservative dads. I'm like, how are you politicizing child trafficking? Like, this doesn't make any sense. So, it's like the meme.
Didn't I remember we used to care about rape and child trafficking was an issue 10, 20 years ago. I always thought as liberals, we were on top of that conversation. Now suddenly, like, if that movie came out, it was like, oh, that's a conservative, crazy conspiracy theory. I was like, I don't know when that happened. I always used to think liberals were well aware of, prostitution and kids being taken across borders and all sorts of issues. I mean, it's...
Yeah,
I don't understand how that got politicized.
Everything did. So we're like in this complete fucking psychotic thing. So now I think it doesn't matter what's politicized and what's not, even though the whole point of the podcast was to depoliticize topics and just bring people kind of back together over absolute insanity and stories that don't seem like they could possibly be true. Like now the Epstein files come out and there's all this information in there and people are hyper focused on making sure Trump is guilty. That's it. They just want, and now all the liberals care. And sometimes I wonder, and I know this is a huge idea, but I said this back when he was elected when he was against Hillary, because I was not a fan of Hillary. And I didn't vote at all, but I had never voted in my life until I voted for Biden because I had Trump derangement syndrome, and then I voted for Trump. So I tried both. I tried them both. I don't know that I'll do it again.
Failed by both.
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, we started Ultra Free only to go on Fox News and to say, I have a company I'm promoting, and they thought I was a Trump supporter. And I knew that the only way to get Kennedy's name on mainstream media was to go on and pretend I was about to talk about Trump. They're like, so you're voting for Trump? I was like, nope. Let me tell you about Kennedy. Let me tell you about RFK. And that was our whole reason to do it in the beginning, which was totally insane. Like, and they would let me come on over and over again, and they would always try to get me to endorse Trump. And I would be like, no, we're going to talk about Kennedy today. So I would always try to find a way in. Anyway, of course, I digressed again. But anyway, where the hell was I? Okay, I'm gonna go back to something that I was listening to this morning because I don't want to keep you forever and ever, but I do have to ask you about these things.
Okay.
So your name was brought up in something I was listening to. And it's funny that you said that because it's like, were you here when I was listening to this? Because the first thing you mentioned to me was, I know you're into this nanoparticle stuff. And I haven't really mentioned it anywhere. I don't know. Maybe maybe in person I mentioned it. I don't know. But I haven't really been talking about it. But I am really interested, and I have been following it a lot because, and also, like the wellness guys like Holscher and McCullough and all these guys are starting to talk about it now. I have been paying attention to that since the inception of the pandemic and people talking about it. So, and I also spoke to this doctor, not a doctor, General, what was his name again? Major Tom. He's a major. And he's been collecting data from all these embalmers. Oh, I don't know if you've heard about this guy.
I have, yeah.
And
I
know,
don't know if Major Tom heard of his name out there. I've interviewed many of these outspoken embalmers. It's a horrific story. They're pulling these crazy white, they're almost like caulk clots out of people, and they've never seen them before. I think that's the part of it that's so shocking. They're like, I never saw one of these ever before. And now some of these guys are saying it's like in 50% of the bodies that they're embalming.
Yes.
So it's like, I wonder, like, what it takes me? I always wonder if there was an alien invasion and they were like crawling into our veins, or like whatever. It was like V and somebody like, at the corner of their eye, like see the lizard eye. Drea, we would like.
You don't need to wonder anymore. It's
right,
coming.
We would never be able to stop it. The mainstream news, they would immediately start running NBC, CBS, and ABC, and they would take over the government and just be like, what are you, crazy? That's not happening. That's crazy talk. And the embalmer's like, I don't know. I'm pulling like lizard tails out of people's bloodstreams. Yeah, sure you are. Like, these stories don't go anywhere. They're shocking as all hell. And it doesn't seem to matter. It doesn't get through to people.
No, but there's more. I mean, okay. I was with my assistant after she got vaccinated the second time, and she was sitting in the car with me, and she had just chewed a huge piece of gum, and she put it on her soda can. And this is still during the days of the masks, and we got our masks on, and the windows are open in the car, and we're driving around. And I keep looking at her gum, and I'm like, this is really, why does she have this wad of gum? Anyhow, I get home that night, and I am deathly ill. I feel so sick out of nowhere. And she texts me, and she goes, dude, I feel fucking terrible. And I go, what do you feel? I was like, you got vaccinated today. I mean, maybe you're having a reaction. And it was the COVID vax. And she went through all of the things that she was feeling. And I was like, I feel exactly the same way, and I have a fever. I thought that was definitely crazy and weird. And then you hear these stories about this shedding stuff, which I think is real. I mean, there are people that are talking about these dog vaccines now that they give the dog, and then the vaccine the dog has will then spread to other dogs.
Yeah.
To their owners.
Owners. Why not? Right.
So I don't put anything past these crazy people. And I've been following this woman, Anna Maria Mihalchia. I don't know how to say it. She won't respond to me. I've been trying to get her to come on the show. There's zero response, but she mentioned your name in this thing today, that she had watched you on TV talking about something, and I don't know what the hell she was talking about, but I know she was talking about nanotech in there because she was dealing with, like, who's the other doctor? I can't remember his name. But early on, I was watching this Dr. Batar talking about
Rashid
stuff.
Batar.
And then he's gone. Like, he claims he was poisoned by a huge payload of vaccines.
I was talking to him when he was on his deathbed. He was a very good friend of mine. He was very, he was very concerned about that. And I mean, at some point, I'm probably not going to give you the thoughts that you think I'm going to give you, but go ahead and ask me whatever question you want, because I'm not exactly where people. I'm not where everyone is on this conversation.
Okay. Well, I think a lot of people are not. Like, even when I mentioned to the major about, and he's the guy with the clots. He's walking around with the bottles of the clots and showing them to everyone. And he's a data guy. He just does. That's what he was doing in the military and stuff. And when I mentioned Mihalchia to him, he was like, nope. there's a lot of doctors that are like, I won't talk about it. And these are people that are on the cutting edge of cancer stuff, and they just don't want to hear what she has to say. And she does all this dark field microscopy, and she's been watching all of these things self-assemble and light up and whatever. And then I know Buttar was talking about early on that there possibly could be sleeper cells, that these vaccines were designed in a way to be activated when certain frequencies were put out with the 6G, 5G. Now it's going to be 6G.
Yeah.
People say that there's not even a 5G chip in your phone. So what the fuck do we need it for?
Yeah.
And then I remember, I don't know if it was Sherry Tenpenny, I'm not sure who it was, but one of these big time doctors were at a vaccine summit. I don't know if it was her. I think it was somebody else. But one of these big doctors that were talking about the vaccines and everything early on. And she went to the COVID vaccine summit, and it was during COVID while everybody was supposedly dying and all this stuff. And they didn't bring up the vaccine at all. They only talked about a Marburg vaccine, an Ebola vaccine. And she thought it was very strange. And she was just reporting back. And then they broke for lunch. And she thought, okay, after lunch, we'll talk about the COVID vaccine. They came back and had decided that they don't need to do pregnancy trials in order to vaccinate everybody for this Marburg vaccine that will be ready to go in a couple of years. And then Buttar is talking about, and I'm putting the pieces together, of course, because everyone's a fucking sleuth in America now, because we don't have any real, reporting on anything. But he's talking about Marburg. And then I think about Fauci and Marburg, or not Marburg, Ebola, and then remdesivir. And it's just all of these sort of, the way it all kind of weaves together. And then looking at the patents of Moderna with all the plastics. So I think they hide a lot of the nano conversation inside the plastics conversation, and how there's all these polymers in the vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
And also the polymers that, when I talk to all the geoengineering guys, that they're using polymers also to drop certain pathogens down to the ground, along with all the heavy metals and all this stuff. So, I mean, all my friends keep asking about that stuff. And, I know these are big topics, and we want to probably stick to, as far as government goes, just trying to hold a few people accountable. But I don't know that many people will be. And I know that it is a fucking really steep uphill battle, but I do think that the microplastics thing, which is tangible for a lot of people, because, once people started saying 8 glasses of water a day, that's when the fluoride went in the water, when the water went into plastic bottles, like all of that sort of stuff. And there's no disputing what's in the patent for the Moderna vaccine, because you can see all of the vinyl, the styrofoam, like all of these different poly whatever the fucks are in there. I'm so articulate, aren't I?
I think that's, look at that. They have great creations like sudden infant death syndrome. So I don't think that's any dumber than poly whatever the fucks either. When doctors start using terms that are just stupid, like baby spontaneously bursts into death syndrome.
Is that not from vaccines?
No. It's, I think one of the things I'll say, Dre, is I think that we've got to remember that we are here to pursue happiness. And no matter how deep we get into any of these conversations, I think it's very dangerous to get yourself or get oneself, myself, and I'll only speak for myself. I'm very careful, actually, with what I embrace as a reality that I live in, because maybe we are in some sort of matrix. Maybe we are in a movie or a video game of sorts. Certainly spiritual, prophets even have said we're creating our reality, or what we believe we create. Is it more true that we, believe what we see, or is it that we see what we believe? And so I try to be really careful on how many things I allow myself to believe without enough proper evidence. There's things that I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I haven't done any deep research into child trafficking, child, sacrifice. It's around me, obviously, in the world that I'm in and all the events I speak at. There are real experts in that space. But I'll be honest, Drea, I'm a warrior. I'm a fighter. I'm a fixer. And I would really struggle with information I can't do anything about. Like, I really, I've gotten active in the things that I care about. When I discovered this abomination of vaccinations, and I've won lawsuits, I've sued the government and won. I have won against the FDA, the NIH, the CDC, Health and Human Services. I have a great nonprofit filled with beautiful people all around the world that are funding me to sue the government to get to the bottom of some of these issues. So I'm an active person, but I can't carry a darkness that I can't do anything about. That's just me personally. I know what my limitations are. I want to wake up in the morning and feel good. I want to be able to look at my kids and look them in the eyes and think there's some hope that this world can be a great place for them. I'm concerned for sure. But what I do with that is really, I need extraordinary evidence. There's something Ryan Cole, who's a great doctor that sort of was made famous through COVID. He's had his career ripped away from him. He was a cancer researcher. His entire laboratory was taken away. It's really horrific. But he once said to me, and it's something that I really carry on these issues, and I'm investigating it all. I'm investigating chemtrails. I've got FOIAs. We are doing legal work and trying to figure out how's it being distributed, who's paying for it, what's all going on. But one of the things he said is, in science, he told me, they say extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. And I think a lot of what we talk about are extraordinary claims met by some pretty half-baked evidence, or even just adequate evidence. It's not good enough. And let me talk about like nanotechnology. Now, let's not confuse that with, there is nanotechnology that's very problematic in vaccines. That is the polylipids, the nanolipids that are designed to cross your blood-brain barrier. They're carrying the mRNA technology. That is nano. It is a serious problem. Nano, oxides in your sunscreen are what make it so toxic. We can put these things, nanoparticles. You're putting on particles that are just far too small. They're going right through your pores, and we're finding them in your kidneys, in your organs, hours later. So that nano thing is an issue. But when it comes to self-assembling nano robots inside of an injection, that is an extraordinary claim. And that is going to need some extraordinary evidence that I personally, someone that is investing more money into looking for that evidence than anyone I know, I haven't found it. I'm going to tell you that. I took 100 vials of 100 different COVID vaccines, and I ran them through the greatest electron microscopy, or whatever, I think that's the word you call it.
This is exciting. Keep going.
And there was absolutely zero graphene oxide, zero, in 100 vials. Now, That's my personal research experience. If someone has found something else, then maybe the 100 vials I had were different, and that's possible. But so I now live in a world where someone's going to have to show me the images. What I did see, by the way, and I did this with Ryan Cole, under a microscope, we were seeing these really weird squares and things that did look like they're stacking up. These pieces that the way they describe graphene oxide is it's two-dimensional, not three-dimensional. So we're seeing these weird little lines, and we're thinking, oh, maybe that's what it is. But when it came back, the results of really gleaning out and the way they do it, they can tell you every single element that was in it. It turns out it's salt. That salt breaks itself. It's almost, imagine, like the white crystals that kind of have the shavings in them, like you can break them apart, like little, you ever have a quartz crystal like that where you can peel it off almost, and it has like these little, shears off or blocks. That's what salt is doing. It can be, and I know people are saying, "Oh my God, he's a shill," and this is the problem with these conversations, right? They're like, "He's working for this," and I'm telling you, salt breaks in these perfect little squares on a microscopic level, and yes, they do collect together in water, and they start like making these little box things that look like some sort of robot. At least that's what I think people are seeing. What I think they're seeing is salt. And if someone can show me,
I want that to be the truth. That's what I want that to be the truth.
Well, that is the truth in the 100 vials that I looked at. And so someone's going to have to show me how they were able to pull graphene oxide, and I want to see those studies. I'm not saying they don't. I'm not making any comment about anyone else. I'm just saying what I found. And
I heard that there was graphene in the PCR tests.
I haven't tested the PCR tests. I haven't tested the PCR tests. I've also talked to scientists that say that graphene oxide is total bullshit, that we have not been able to even create this element. So I don't know. I had Didier Raoult, who is the scientist in France. He's the Tony Fauci of France, on my show. And he, was saying, and by the way, he's in trouble because he's the one that came up with the hydroxychloroquine. He used it in China the second it happened. He's one of the greatest virologists in the world and just started saving lives like crazy. He literally, before there was ever, before the virus even hit America, said, "Don't worry, everybody. Not only can we treat this upper respiratory virus, it's easy to treat. Hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, done, gone, you're fine." That was the statement he made, got in a lot of trouble. He's a really huge deal. There's something like 65 germs named after him, with Didier or Raoult somewhere in there, he's named them. So anyway, he said on my show, because I'm freaking out. I'm crazy about gain of function. I'm big with Bobby Kennedy on this. We've got to stop the gain of function research. And here is one of the leading virologists in the world. He says on the show, "We don't know how to make a virus infect anybody. We've never been able to do that." I said, "What?" He says, "Oh, it's total bullshit. We do not know how to do that. We've never, ever, not a lab in the world has ever been able to take a virus that doesn't infect human beings and make it infect human beings." Now, look, he's just one interview, right? But he was so sincere about it, and he literally is naming, elements. He's famous. He's going to go down in history as one of the greatest virologists in the world. And he said, "Don't believe any of that. It's not true. We don't have that ability yet." And so, and I find, Drea, the deeper I look into things, the more and more I think the world is being run by fucking idiots. And that is my discovery. Not some super genius physicists, scientists, making microbots. They can't even make a flu shot that stops the fucking flu. Okay? They've never even achieved that. Okay? So can we just start there? If the goal was to somehow keep you from getting the flu, never been able to even really do that well. So I think we have got to be careful that we don't create such a cartoon boogeyman and imbue them with such abilities that are they're like super villains, right? And really, Drea, they're just human beings. And I think when we think about these topics, just think about the smartest people you know. How smart are they actually? And when you think about when we say they planned the pandemic, they all came together and this thing was planned out. I have a real issue with that. I'm not saying there are elements of it that are planned. There was definitely, I think they can create pandemics. They made us afraid of a fucking cold is what happened. I mean, it wasn't some deadly disease. It didn't end up being. Across the world, COVID killed 0.35% of people. And I think most of those deaths were medical malpractice. They were being killed in hospitals by lack of treatment or the wrong treatment, putting people on ventilators and exploding their lungs, putting them on remdesivir, which was a failed Ebola drug. I mean, the entire thing was people just got killed in hospitals by malpractice, which is as equally an outrageous statement. But let's just talk about they, because you know people. We study, I mean, I was an actor too. So this is where I want to meet you. Whether you're a method actor, you know, which is what sort of my version of studying was, or, you know, you're either mimicking what you've seen or you think you can actually recreate, but you study humanity. And here's what's true about human beings. We're a bunch of egotistical, narcissist materialists that are out for ourselves. Okay, that's the one thing you can count on, right? Like, we all are really just trying to survive. We don't trust anybody. That is the nature of our species for the most part. And we're trying to make enough money so that we can live with as much luxury as we can possibly pull off for us and our kids. And, you know, and some of us are a little nicer than others, but deep down we're out for ourselves. It doesn't matter what company you have. It doesn't matter what cast you're in. I've cast, I've been a director. I've always said, like, in a play, there's always some actor that just doesn't learn their fucking lines, won't do the work as hard as everyone else does. That's you? Oh man, you drive me crazy. But whatever the case, I've had people that it was so bad that you end up firing that actor and you replace them. And what I found is either the person you replace them with is just as bad, or somebody else stops reading their lines. Almost like there's this natural function in a society where you have to have a rebel that won't learn their lines. You have to have and we all play out, as Shakespeare said, we're all like these actors on a stage, and it's all the play, whether we like it or not. But in every company, there's people that don't get along. In every industry, there's egos that come in. There's someone that wants my job and they're gunning for me and they're backstabbing me and they're trying to get there. And then there's those that really like me. And then there's fickle people. But I'm going to say this, that one of the things about this anti-vaccine movement, one of the hardest things about it is how much we fight each other. Everyone talks about it. They'll say, oh my God, there's just so much infighting, we can't get anything done. And I've always said, stop worrying about it. Infighting is a natural human instinct. It's just what we do. We always think we can do it better than somebody else. And instead of actually doing it, we'd rather sit on our Barcalounger and just, you know, call out the other person and make them feel bad. Because that's the easiest thing to do, is to just, you know, lambaste someone and backstab them and undermine them instead of just focusing on what I can do. And so every movement has this issue. And I even joke in this movement, and I think we've been very successful in this space, but I've said civil rights is the most successful movement I know of. And the infighting in that was so bad that Martin Luther King and Malcolm X both got assassinated. And that's the most successful movement I know of. So infighting is always there. There's always egos, and probably we don't know who is probably people that loved Martin Luther King that killed him. We never get to the bottoms of these things. Here's my point. When we say they have got some diabolical plan that they're living out for us, Drea, you have got to be talking about not just egos. We are now talking about supreme egos. We're talking about Rothschild egos. We're talking about people with so much money, they never have to do a damn thing anyone else ever says. All they do is dictate what they want to the slaves around them that live in their world. And you're telling me that these dictating, nihilistic a-holes from hell suddenly all get in a room together. Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab, you know, Elon Musk, the Rothschilds, you know, who put them all in there. And they suddenly go, kumbaya. Hey, Bill, what's your idea? What do you think our slogan should be to take over the world? I love that idea, Bill. Bullshit. These people have got to never want to believe anyone else is as powerful as them. They have got to be in a battle. If there is a room like that, all they're doing is duking it out on over who really gets to be the leader of the world. Who's going to get to be the final dictator survivor? It's a survivor game. It's a survivor game on every single level. So if we, as people that feel disempowered, somehow imbue upon the evil an ability to get along that we don't have, I can't even talk to my own family member about COVID, but Bill Gates and the Rothschilds are going to get along on how to take over the earth. It's just not going to happen. right? We are turning the world into a cartoon and making it and creating evil at a level that we cannot beat it. And this is what I really, truly believe. And maybe it's just my own way of getting up in the morning and feeling like I can do something would help me charge the bunkers that I do. But I believe that this is just a pack. The world, sure, they're rich. They're buying up television sets. The pharmaceutical industry is against us. It's super powerful. But it's not totally in agreement with with the people making guns and creating wars. And they're not totally in agreement with the bankers. And the bankers aren't totally. So our advantage, and when you think of the art of war, one of the main tenets is you have to know your enemy. You cannot know your enemy if you don't imbue them with some piece of humanity. Just like Drea, you cannot play any role in a film, and especially the bad guys, if you can't find the human instinct that they have inside of them that has made them who they are, whether they were raped as a child. You do this work. As actors, you try to imagine what issues have been created inside of this human being that would make them outwardly seem this evil. But as an actor, I've got to find what causes that. What is inside of them that makes that happen? Or this is going to be a two-dimensional, terrible character, and you're definitely never going to win an award. And that's why you do things, but you're not going to enjoy the performance. And we have to do the same thing when we think about these people. Bill Gates is just a human being. I can play him. I believe that this is a guy who has lost all sight of a God in this earth. He thinks he's smart. He's outsmarted everybody. He's made so much money, so I'm smarter than everybody. And totally unlikable human being. But I think he does think, I'm going to save the human species. I'm going to go down in history as the man that saved the species from extinction. If everyone goes to my museum in Seattle and says all the great things that I invested in, and it's going to be vaccines, and I'm going to reduce the population. If I can get it down to this number, then you'll all survive. The earth will be great, and one day there'll be shrines to Bill Gates. He's just an egomaniac that is failing at what he's doing. Instead of saving humanity, he's destroying it. Instead of saving children all over Africa as he's holding them, I don't think he's holding the little babies saying, I hope I can kill you. I think he's thinking, oh man, I think I can save all of humanity like this. I just need to keep injecting them with polysorbate 80 mercury, formaldehyde, living viruses and bacteria. And if I do enough of that, somehow we'll get it all to work out. I could be wrong, but I don't think he is evil. But his evil is not that he wants to kill everything around him. His evil is that he is the only answer in his world. There is no God. There's nothing bigger than him. And that makes him one of the most dangerous human beings on the planet. But it's a flawed human. And that we can beat. What we can't beat is a successful, demonic, dark, mythological evil power. And I refuse to give anyone walking on this earth to imbue them with that talent or that ability.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm with you on all of that. I do think that everybody is a human being and they all come from someplace. Either they come here destroyed from birth or it develops out of something. I pray for all of these guys that I even pray that there will be a moment where one of them says, I can't do this. This isn't okay for my conscience. But I think we're dealing with a lot of sociopaths also. But I also think that there are other forces behind a lot of these human beings that we're looking at. And I think that's, look, even when we were talking about the nanotech, the clots, the things, all of these things that need, crazy evidence. It's not that I believe anything. I'm at a point in my life where I believe nothing. And the story is always developing. So when people are like, well, you voted for Trump, or, you think you know everything. And it's like, no, I actually think I know nothing. And I think the more I learn about a certain topic, the more questions I have. So then I'll ask someone like you who's in the vaccine world, what do you think of these theories? Because these are a lot of fucking crazy theories. I have no evidence, and I don't think any of them did either, but they had ideas of possibilities. And I think some of those possibilities, now knowing how fucking wildly wicked the world is because of technology, we see it all. I mean, they can suppress as much as they want. We're still going to see a good portion of it until maybe this new Palantir thing really sets in, or Oracle, whomever the fuck it's going to be. But yes, I can't help but ask questions all the time. And I don't think I'll ever get closer to the truth of anything. So I don't know, you're right. It could be some mythological fucking entity out there. There are a lot of people that think that. There are a lot of people that believe. And I think you and I and 100 other people during the election period were talking about this being a battle between good and evil.
Yeah.
And yes, there are these rich family bankers. And yes, there are these, old bloodlines and all of those sort of things. Those are fun stories at this point, because if we are watching a lot of fucking theater unfold, I mean, this is now you're right. It almost becomes like a fucking cartoon.
Yeah.
So what do? We
rewrite the cartoon.
Evidence.
We rewrite the cartoon.
Yes. And I agree with you. We have to wake up every day and know that, I mean, the only thing I do believe is love. That's it. There's nothing you can, and that we're all going to fucking die at some point, that this will end. But I do believe in love, and that is the main thing that should guide us through everything at all times. And I guess, that's even how I decided not to get vaccinated and not to allow my kids to get vaccinated in COVID. It was like, I know something, as a woman, and I think we're different creatures on the planet. Like sometimes we just know things and we don't even know why we know things, but we just have some weird connection to the planet, the earth, to our children. We grow things, we naturally grow things. So I was like, I know something is going to happen to someone in this house. If I vaccinate them, it's going to be one of us, and I don't know who it's going to be. And I didn't know anything about the vaccine. I just knew that there was no fucking way. So, and that's when my whole journey started, of asking a million questions. And now I'm probably never going to stop. But, and who knows, the story might unfold where, there's a beast that emerges from the clouds. I'm sure they have that in store for us too, with their fucking crazy operations.
Why not? Well, what you just said, I think, is the most profound and mystical ability that human beings actually have, which is there is something inside of us that can guide us and show us the truth, at least in the journey we're on, that transcends anything you can explain. I think what you're saying, that someone in this house is not going to fare well if we all do this thing. I've interviewed so many people that had exactly that thought, but did it anyway. And sure enough, their child's never spoke again and had autism. And they beat themselves up over not having listened to that voice. I think the world changes the more human beings start listening to that voice that you're talking about. I think that the most important work we can do is to try and figure out how to quiet all of the noise in our head, all the fear that the news is creating. It's great to have these conversations and they're fun, and it's great to do the research and all of it, but you have to be able to shut it down and really allow that antenna, I think that's somewhere around your heart or feels like that connects you to source, God, whatever you want to call it. I don't care. I'm not here to be your priest or your minister, but there is something bigger than all of us that does speak to us and through us. And if you were to ask me who I really am, I'm someone that was raised by parents that taught me that was the most important voice there is in the world. They taught me to meditate as a little kid, when I was 3 years old, Took years for me to actually use the practice, but I get quiet and I try to listen to what that voice is telling me I'm supposed to do today. And all I've been doing is saying yes instead of overriding it, or that sounds stupid, or Del, there's no way you can make a difference. That'll never work. Robert Kennedy Jr. will never be president. Why even bother telling him he should run for president, which was my idea, by the way. And he blames me for it. But I'm a person that just started saying, what if I said yes to that intuitive voice that is asking me to do some crazy things and look into some crazy investigations and believe I can make a difference in the world. And the life that I've experienced when I started doing that has been really, really spectacular. It's like watching it from outside of myself. It's humbling, and I've watched other people do amazing things and amazing people taking amazing risks that don't make sense. But what they don't want, whatever they is, they don't ever want us to connect inside of ourselves. They don't want us to listen to that voice, because that voice is love. That voice is connecting us to each other. That voice is the web of humanity. And our televisions and our radios and all the fear is trying to distract us from listening to the true web of life that connects all of us. We have got to start working more at that. Probably more important than figuring all this out is starting to listen to our connection and to that source and asking ourselves every day, how am I going to make this world a better place? And then when you ask that question, listen for that answer and do whatever it is it's telling you to do.
I totally agree. I think that we need to remember where we came from. I think that's what the push is towards, where all of us need to figure out how fucking powerful we are. And they've been trying to keep us away from that by putting all of this shit on top of us to keep us fucking completely submissive and quiet and sick. And I think that we're fucking superheroes, each and every one of us. We've been totally taught otherwise. So, fuck yeah, I'm with you, Del.
All
and
right.
You're going to make me cry right now. God damn it. John Berger. Was it John Berger? Is that his
George
name?
Berger. George Berger.
Holy shit, I haven't watched Hair since I'm a kid. Oh my God. I mean, I just want you to sing your fucking song right now, Del.
Oh, I don't think, I don't even try to sing anymore.
I want to see your hair long. I
it
want to
was
see
long.
you
It was
in
long.
that play.
It was
with your
all the way
long
down to
hair.
my waist, actually. That's probably why I got the gig. I was a total hippie for a while there.
Del, for this episode,
cool.
You better fucking make sure that you send me a picture of you in that play.
Okay.
I never put anything up. I'm putting a picture of you up in that friggin' play. You know, I'm going to let you go in a second, but I started out the podcast just to talk about geoengineering because I knew they were going to try to start normalizing it. I know they were going to start trying to normalize everything, including the vaccines. Everything is, if they're always 12 steps ahead of us, whatever, if they know we're going to start talking. And that's a really big issue for me because you can't breathe it in all the time. It's nuanced. Not everyone's going to get sick from the vaccine, certain vaccines, and not everyone's going to get sick from what they're spraying. But everyone has a different constitution. But the other main reason why was to get through all of this earthly shit that's happening and to just, have a different voice at it. And because a lot of people are learning this stuff for the first time. And they don't know what to do with the information. They're just freaked out by how evil everybody is. And then that's where I feel like I can come in and be like, it's really not, it's not that bad if you can sort of center yourself. And because I went through all of those motions when I first started to learn the truth about all of this insanity happening in the world and how people could do this to each other. And I had to calm myself down and I had to find my center and I had to find a way to help my friends acclimate to the new normal. And all of it has been me telling them, you just have to remember where you came from. You just have to, and I didn't even know why I was saying it. And now everything that I come across is about that. So when I was starting the podcast, like I said, I was like, I want to get through this earthly shit, and then I want to move straight into the idea of everything has been kept from us, not just history, not regular history that we learned in our, in our history classes, but about where we come from. And I feel like that's super important because a lot of people think so many things are heresy and a lot of things are not. And I think the dark forces that are out there, they know a lot of this stuff, but they keep it for themselves because they don't want us to have any kind of empowerment. And I think that, I think it's time for us to take back our power, and it doesn't have to always be doing what you and I do, screaming and yelling from a rooftop, this is wrong. It can also just be small and just raising your own frequency and having a better sense of yourself and your own self-love. And don't let them, teach you how to not love yourself and not love your neighbor. So eventually, hopefully, we'll be back there, and then I'm going to bring you on to cry with me for hours.
All right, let's do it. Look, it's all. I've been looking at all these things. I just again, evil. Even with the geoengineering, they want to control. Told you, they want control of your body because they're afraid there'll be too many people. They want control over the weather because they think the weather is going to destroy humanity. They want control over everything. They're tiny little brains, tiny little afraid beings that maybe did really good in chemistry class or whatever they did. They have no concern for the repercussions of the chemicals they're using to try and seed that cloud or make some rain, to make a farm get water or fill a lake or block their neighbor and use it as a weapon. And all of this is control, because they feel so out of control. They can't handle living in a world that doesn't go their way. They refuse to listen to any prophet like Jesus that says you're going to have turmoil in the world. If you want the world to make you happy, it never will do it. Be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. I have returned to my being. We are created in the image and likeness of God. That is what they're trying to hide from us. Just think of what that means. That's the first story ever told. I can't wrap my head around the size of a superhero, a human being that truly recognizes what it means to say, I'm created in the image and likeness of my Creator. That is definitely, they want us afraid. They want us staring at the sky, at the chemtrails, and feeling disempowered. They are a pack of idiots. We need to get back to who we are, and then we'll be unstoppable. All right.
Thanks for coming here and hanging out with me, Del.
It's been a blast. I am sure I've said things on this podcast that are going to give me more trouble than anything I've done, including a couple of F-bombs. I never do that, but this is like if we were having a drink, this is how we'd be talking. So here it is. I'm going to ask my team, am I okay with the F-bombs?
What do you want? Cut. Everybody says this after they talk to me for a little bit. I had a doctor on here. She's like, I like my whole episode cut. I was like, why? She's like, I just felt really comfortable. I'm like, well, I mean, what am I, fucking Oprah Winfrey over here?
You're really good
I'm
at
the
what you do.
intimidating
It's so
one.
much fun.
I got the big eyebrows. I'm scary looking. But obviously, if you want me to cut any F-bombs,
no.
who cares about
you'll be hearing
F-bombs?
from my lawyers. It's okay.
Well, thank you. Thank
All right,
you. And
thank you.
and if I am when I'm filming in Austin, because I'm gonna wait till you see this fucking show.
I can't wait.
It's about our world. It'll never see the light of day. We'll see.
Oh, I'll help it see the light of day. I know
we'll
some
see.
people.
Yeah,
Right.
we'll see. You'll know all of these people who are in it, by the way. Every last one of them.
Good.
I'll just leave it at that. All right. Have a great day, Del.